everyone, this is Kathy, and welcome back to another Sunday Praise at Kathy's Happy Home. Sorry I've missed a couple of weeks, life happens, but we're continuing on with Esther, and today we're up to chapter 6. And this is an honor for Mordecai. So the king has a question. Um, that night, from where we left off in chapter 5, the king could not sleep, so one was commanded to bring the book of the records of the Chronicles, and they were read before the king. And it was found written that Mordecai had told of Bigthana and Teresh, two of the king's eunuchs, the doorkeepers, who had sought to lay hands on King Ahasuerus. Then the king said, "What honor or dignity has been bestowed on Mordecai for this?" And the king's servants who attended him said, "Nothing has been done for him." So, this is a night where the king can't sleep, and we all have those nights where we can't sleep, don't we? And he did what many of us do. He got a book to read, try to make himself tired enough to go to sleep. Um, and it was a remarkable example of providence in action, because he can't sleep. He can choose 20 different diversions to fill his sleepless night, but he commands that a book be brought to him and read to him. The one commanded to bring the book could have brought any book at all, but he brings a book of the records of the Chronicles, and this particular book. And the book could have opened to any page, but opened to the exact page telling the story of Mordecai and how he saved the king from assassination, God guiding every step of the way. And he's showing a rare concern for a common subject. He considers a reward for Mordecai. He says, "What's been done? How did we honor this man who saved my life?" And the answer is, we didn't do anything for him. So let's look at verses 4 and 5. So the king said, "Who is in the court?" Now Haman had just entered the outer court of the king's palace to suggest that the king hang Mordecai on the gallows that he had prepared for him. The king's servant said to him, "Haman is there, standing in the court." And the king said, "Let him come in." So it's no coincidence that Haman entered the king's court just at that moment. And it was no coincidence that he was asking for the execution of Mordecai. And it's definitely no coincidence that just at that moment, Ahasuerus wanted to honor Mordecai. So, if this book of Esther shows us anything, it shows us that God manages the affairs of men even without their knowledge. God knows what he's doing. There's no coincidences or surprises in his mind. Esther wasn't lucky to be queen, and Mordecai wasn't lucky to have overheard this plot against the king. It wasn't luck that made Haman enter the court at just that particular time. All these events were orchestrated by God, not by luck. It's difficult, of course, to see when bad things happen to us. It's easy to see when good things happen, God's management and all of it. But what about the bad things? Even then, we must trust God and his total plan, realizing that all things are going to work together for good, as it tells to those who love God, as it tells us in Romans 8:28. So let's go on to verse 6. So Haman came in, and the king asked him, "What shall be done for the man whom the king delights to honor?" Now Haman thought in his heart, "Whom would the king delight to honor more than me?" God arranged all things so that not only are the Jews going to be ultimately protected, but also that Mordecai and Haman are both going to get what's coming to them. God often allows a fallen man to set his own trap, allowing Haman to make his pride the cause of his ultimate humiliation. Haman is so full of himself that he thinks the king couldn't possibly want to honor anyone more than he wants to honor me. And so in verses 7 to 9, we see how Haman answers the king on this question. And Haman answered the king, "For the man whom the king delights to honor, let a royal robe be brought which the king has worn, and a horse on which the king has ridden, which has a royal crest placed on its head. Then let this robe and horse be delivered to the hand of one of the king's most noble princes, that he may array the man whom the king delights to honor. Then parade him on horseback through the city square, and proclaim before him, Thus shall it be done to the man whom the king delights to honor." Haman, in his childish desire to be praised and honored by everyone, asks the king for the things that really matter to him. He has so puffed up with pride. He's going to be wearing the king's clothes and riding on the king's horse, and have someone proclaim in front of him how wonderful he is. And Haman was a tragic man, though. He can only believe that he has done well when he hears applause. It's a good and sometimes appropriate thing for people to give us applause here on earth, but it's tragic to live your life seeking for that applause. We should instead seek for God's honor. So in verses 10 to 11, we read what happens when the king hears what Haman says. Then the king said to Haman, "Hurry, take the robe and the horse as you have suggested, and do so for Mordecai the Jew, who sits within the king's gate. Leave nothing undone of all that you have spoken." So Haman took the robe and the horse, arrayed Mordecai, and led him on horseback through the city square, and proclaimed before him, "Thus shall it be done to the man whom the king delights to honor." It would have been something to see the face of Haman, wouldn't it, at that moment, to see that the king took his advice completely, but gave the honor to his archenemy, the man that Haman was looking to hang on his gallows. And the ultimate humiliation was that Haman was the one who had to dress Mordecai in the special robe, help him mount the horse, and lead him through the city, yelling out what a wonderful man Mordecai was. That was public humiliation for him. Verses 12 to 14. Afterward, Mordecai went back to the king's gate, but Haman hurried to his house, mourning and with his head covered. When Haman told his wife Zeresh and all his friends everything that had happened to him, his wise men and his wife Zeresh said to him, "If Mordecai, before whom you have begun to fall, is of Jewish descent, you will not prevail against him, but will surely fall before him." While they were still talking with him, the king's eunuchs came and hastened to bring Haman to the banquet that Esther had prepared. This means Haman acted as if someone near and dear to him had died. His pride had in fact been dealt a death blow. And Haman's wife and his advisors could see the future well enough. Haman is not going to prevail against Mordecai. Mordecai is going to prevail against Haman. And that's where we're going to leave it for today. So come back next time and we'll continue on with chapter 7. See you then.